what are the most realistic expectations for Manchester United next season? As the new season dawns upon us, the anxiety and hope begins. Will this be the season we can finally say Manchester United are back? If we're going to have a good season, it has to start at the beginning and with consistency. We can't go into another season where we start slowly, draw games against teams that we're expected to beat. And the only way we could do that is having a good squad. Now, obviously, there's players that are on World Cup duty. However, there's a core amount of players that are not. Benjamin Sesko, Luke Shaw, Harry Maguire, Mbeumo. These type of players, they haven't been to the World Cup, obviously. And not just that. Remember, some of the players that are on World Cup duty might come home quicker because their teams have been knocked out of the World Cup. So, that being said, Man United have to start really, really well. This is the only way we can build that foundation. As I've said before, you can't win the league at the beginning, but you can certainly lose it. Looking at the fixture list, there's teams there like Hull City, Ipswich Town, Everton, and yes, we've got the Manchester Derby on the 4th game of the season, but it's at Old Trafford. These games we should win, and the only way we'll do that is Michael Carrick and the backroom team get a team together to make sure we start off really, really well. So, one of the biggest things we could do at the beginning of the season is beat them teams, because that will give us a really good foundation to move on from when we move right into the season in October, November, and leading up to December. And obviously, it's the signings that we get as well. If we sign Mateus Fernandes, he'll be a great addition. And whoever comes with him, a left wing, a striker, maybe a defender, they all have to make sure they fit into that team and fit straight in. Because going into, let's say, October, November, when the season kicks off and the cup competitions start, we really have to make sure we've got points on the table. The players that have returned from the World Cup should be ready by then. So that means Man United should start the season really, really well. And then one of the biggest expectations for the season for me will be winning a cup. Why? Because that's something that marks a really good team, the winning mentality. And the only way you do that is obviously by winning. And that's why I always say, even winning the Carabao Cup, that can be a really good catalyst to go on and win more things, because you're developing a mentality of winning, and that should be throughout the squad. So it doesn't matter what competition you're in, Manchester United should be making sure that they challenge for every single one. Now, obviously, the league is the biggest one, and then the Champions League, but let's leave them two aside for a second. I'm going to say the minimum requirement for Manchester United this season will be lifting either the FA Cup or the Carabao Cup, and obviously getting back into the Champions League. Now, we all know how Arsene Wenger made that into a cup itself, the top 4. And now, generally, it's the top 5, or even winning the Europa League. But Manchester United, they have no opportunity to win the Europa League this year, because obviously the ruling that you can't go into the Europa League if you drop out the Champions League, that I think is a really, really good rule, because it generally was won by that team that dropped out. And I thought it was really unfair for the teams that were already in it. But then looking at the Champions League, you can see that some teams get really far in there. I mean, look at Arsenal, for example. They went all the way to the final and they were a penalty kick away from winning it. It would have been an absolute disaster if they did, because the awful football that they played. However, it can be done. And that's why I always say, if other teams can do it, why can't we? Not just that, throughout the last few years, some really unfancied teams have got there. The semi-finals at least. Inter Milan was it the year before, who got absolutely battered by PSG. So it can happen. And a good run in the Champions League and get into the final, I would actually say it's quite realistic. I'm not going to say it's an expectation, but as I've said, Manchester United should be winning things this next season, and at least the FA Cup or the Carabao Cup. And here's something that Man United have struggled with throughout the last few seasons, and that's beating these teams in the bottom half of the table. Last year, I think we only beat Wolves, Burnley. It's absolutely pathetic. We drew twice to West Ham last year. Burnley, we just about beat them last year. I was at that game. Teams like Everton, Fulham, Bournemouth, we have to start beating them and beating them comfortably, making sure that we put them to bed. I mean, it was absolutely pathetic that Everton came to Old Trafford and beat us with 10 men. And then Bournemouth, I mean, we got robbed in the second game, but that 4-4 draw was absolutely horrific. Why? Because we kept going ahead and we just couldn't keep the lead. It was pathetic. And then you've got teams like Fulham, who have always been not kind of a bogey side, but we find it quite hard to beat them. I think we've only beat them by 1 goal in the last few seasons. And then they can always very easily get a draw. That 3-2 win that we had at Old Trafford when Benjamin Sesko scored, that was right at the end. So Manchester United really need to focus on beating these teams because we've got a really good record against the top sides and we can always show up for them games because that's what Manchester United do. Going into next season, the bottom half of the table, maybe everyone from like 8th down at least, and definitely in the relegation zone, Manchester United should be beaten, and that's an absolute requirement. We cannot keep doing this every season where we struggle against these teams. We have to learn how to play against a low block. Why? Because that's how the majority of the Premier League play. Like it or not, there's this whole thing about the Premier League being the best league in the world, and maybe it is. The football it always plays, well, about 90% of the league plays this type of sit back, take the pressure, and counter attack football. Only a few teams play that pressing style. I would actually like to think that this year, Man United focus on that and start beating these teams. As long as we get the right players, it's really, really important because the key to that, obviously, is a good transfer window. Make sure the team that we put out can actually break them low blocks down. And that fittingly moves me on to Old Trafford. What we must do is build a fortress. Once upon a time, when teams used to line up in the tunnel, the game was already won for Manchester United. And it's absolutely pathetic how that's been destroyed in the last 10 years. Man United is no longer a fortress. Players come there to create moments. Players come there to create that moment they'll remember for the rest of their lives. From now on, teams like Burnley, West Ham, do they find it difficult playing at Old Trafford? I'm not too sure. And that's why Manchester United have to build that again because that fear that opponents get when they step off the bus, go into the changing rooms and step out onto Old Trafford, they've got to feel that from the beginning. They've actually got to feel that before they even come to Old Trafford. And that's what's really important. And the only way you do that is by winning. And not just winning 2-1, 3-1, 1-0. You have to batter teams. The only way you build that reputation of fear is by absolutely outplaying your opponent and making sure you put them to bed, not giving them a chance. The way Carrick plays, I reckon it will slightly change next year. I reckon it will be a lot more progressive and a lot more attacking, making sure we keep a hold of that ball a lot better. And not just that, having a better transfer window will absolutely help that. So building an atmosphere in Old Trafford is key. And that's something that us supporters have to make sure we maintain. Old Trafford has always been one of them stadiums where if the other team get the better of us, it can go really, really quiet. All supporters of Manchester United are the best. But I would have to say is that throughout the years, it has lacked a bit. And that has to change. Making sure for 90 minutes, we let the away side know that you're in for a game. And we are not going to let up. Old Trafford needs to become a fortress again. And that is something that Manchester United need to focus on and focus on big. I mean, what can the board do to help that? If you look at around Europe, let's take Galatasaray for example. Unbelievable support. You're not just playing Galatasaray, the football team. You're actually playing the support. They are an average team. Technically, they're not very good. You can see that because when you go and play them in their home ground, the atmosphere is violent. It's tense. It's nervy. It's unbelievable. Man United have played them over the history and we've always struggled against them. And it's not technically the team, it's the atmosphere. I mean, what their supporters do, how they sing, the actual tifos, the banners, the flags, everything together, it's absolutely a cauldron of madness. And that's what Manchester United need to recreate. If only a supporters group can go around Europe and go to these type of teams and ask their fans groups, what can we do to kind of bring that kind of atmosphere to Old Trafford? And even when for simple things like scoring a goal, shouting out the player's name, that's unbelievable. They do that a lot in places like Germany. I think that's fabulous. But in Old Trafford, in England, doesn't really happen at all. And that's what really needs to improve. And that's what something the club can really look into. Obviously, we've got flags now in the Stretford Inn. That's really, really good. But what about tifos? What about fireworks shows, light shows? I mean, to build that atmosphere, you've got to really invest in that kind of infrastructure. And Manchester United need to do that because that will really help. I guess it all comes down to supporting the team and making sure they get the results. So if anything they can do that's tangible, they should do it. Because next season, it's an absolute requirement that Manchester United, Old Trafford, becomes a fortress. And here it comes. I'm going to say it. Challenging for the Premier League. For me, that is a huge requirement. Manchester United every season should be challenging for the Premier League. And yes, times have changed. And yes, things are different. And we have to accept that we're part of an era where Manchester United, the cycle of Man United, has come down. Fine, I accepted that, but that doesn't mean it cannot rise, and it cannot rise anytime. And I reckon next season is that season. Now, that doesn't mean that Manchester United will win the Premier League next year, but what it does mean, it could be the start of something great. What it does mean, it is the beginning that Manchester United can start coming back. However, next season, a minimum requirement should be for Man United is to challenge. And why do I say that? Well, because look around you. If Arsenal can do it, if Chelsea can do it, and Liverpool can do it, and City can do it, why can't we? All it takes is a good transfer window. People kind of, for me, over-egg it a bit. And yes, it's really important, everything that goes into it. The team, the manager, the backroom staff, the transfer window. Yes, you have to build up, a really, really good squad, a deep squad. But that can be achieved in a transfer window. If Manchester United really invest, why not? Michael Carrick has already showed that his style of football is really, really good. He's already showed that he can beat the best. He can be consistent. And if we can take that consistency into next year, if we can beat the teams around us and at the bottom of the table, which shouldn't be too hard, if we can get more players, why not? I mean, Arsenal won the Premier League after 20 odd years. Liverpool won it after 30 years. So, yes, Man United, it's been 14 years? We can do it too. Why can't we? I mean, challenging for the league should be a minimum requirement. Last year we were 14 points off. I can comfortably tell you all the games we messed up on, because if we won those games, we probably would have won the Premier League. I mean, Burnley, West Ham, Leeds, Everton, Newcastle with 10 men. I mean, it's endless. It's pathetic. We could have gained enough points to maybe even just about nick the Premier League, win it by a few points. And that was a really realistic thing that could have happened. But we didn't invest. And because of that, well, we ended up being third. We were comfortably the third best team. I mean, we beat Arsenal at their ground. We were the better team. We were the better team in the first game when we played them right at the beginning of the season. So why can't we? I think Man United should be confident. So now this is just an expectation. It might be, it's not me being like, this is something that's definitely going to happen, build up the kind of hope in all the fans, because obviously Man United can very easily mess it up, and they have done so. What is there? The board are trying to sign some really good players. The board are doing it right this time. There's some positions that we've really signed some good players in. Goalkeeper, for example, the front three, Cunha, Mbuemo, Sesko. So why not? Why not? Because a minimum requirement, I mean, that's just, for me as a Manchester United fan, Man United should be doing that every year. And because other teams have done that, they've risen again, won the Premier League, it's going to happen. And I'll tell you something, one of the hardest things is, after winning the Premier League, is to retain it, the mentality, the attitude. Do these players that play for Arsenal, have they got that? Will they go into next season and kind of be overconfident? More than likely they will, because they don't have any superstars. Bukayo Saka is not a world-class player. Martin Odegaard isn't. Martinelli isn't. Gabriel isn't. But what they are is getting a good 7 out of 10 and beating the teams that they should and being consistent. And you don't have to, blow away teams with amazing football, because Arsenal have proven that last year. So Manchester United, I'm not saying should replicate that, but what we should definitely do is replicate them results, because challenging is a minimum. I mean, what do you guys think? Is this something that is unrealistic? Is it a few years away? Do you think that Manchester United will sign some really good players and start off well? These are the type of questions that we should all be asking ourselves. Should you have some hope? Should you start the hope now, or just kind of wait until the season starts and let it be and see what happens? Because, Man United are indifferent. Man United are a different team. Or do you completely expect nothing from Man United? Are you still one of them people that actually think we've got the manager wrong in Michael Carrick? Do you believe in the board? Do you think Ineos are the right owners to take us forward? Or do you think they just completely keep getting it wrong? And going into next season, are we going to make the same mistakes as we've made before? It's a question that I guess is on the back of everyone's mind. And some people, will take that and, die on their swords, because that's how some supporters are. I'm not that type of negative supporter. I'm always kind of optimistic, and the proof is there. There's been seasons where we played so bad and then we've beat Manchester City in the FA Cup. Well, the first part of seasons where we've been really bad, we get to the 19th game and we've gone on to get into the Champions League. We did that a couple of times under Oli. I mean, just remember, under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, we went unbeaten for an entire season away. I mean, how does that sound? So that's why I think to those supporters who kind of are quite pessimistic or quite negative about it, fair enough, each to their own. But do you guys think that maybe this year will be the year? Or is it same old story, another season for Man United? Because I'm one of them supporters who think Manchester United are coming back. And I'll be there every week watching and hoping that we do. And making sure 21 comes home. Please like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I'll be back.